Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 16 of One Credit Classics. 16, craziness. Since I started this, I've had kind of requests every week to do various different games, and like, generationally, there's people from like, there's older people, there's younger people. People will talk about the games that they want to play and the games that they are important. One game that seemed to have brought everybody together from every gaming generation I can think of is this. Sega's Outrun from 1986, written by the legendary Yu Suzuki. It's as 80s as it gets, really. It's a perfect arcade game that sees you driving a Ferrari Testarossa across a number of levels to trying to beat the clock. And that was one of the things Yu Suzuki his mantra for Outrun, really, was the fact that it was a driving game, not a racing game. And it is that, because you're not actually racing against anybody. It's the driving experience you wanted to capture. When it came out in 86, it sold 20,000 cabs in 12 months. And if you've ever seen a proper Outrun cab, like the full cabinet one, it was like a model of like a Testarossa that you'd sit in. And it had like the speakers in the back, so it had surround sound, a proto surround sound for kind of 86. It was also hydraulically powered, so when you turned it, it'd turn. They're absolutely amazing. They made a lot of slimmed down kind of versions that were stand up just with a steering wheel, but even then they had a steering wheel, pedals and a gearbox rather than just a joystick. So it was to try and make people kind of become more engaged with the act of kind of driving, really. When the 8-bit ports came in 1987, it became kind of the best-selling game of that year. Sold 250,000 copies across a lot of formats, and it sold 200,000 of those in 2 weeks on the lead to Christmas. Outrun itself, this version, came out over so many consoles, and simply because it became part of lots of other kind of games. So, like, for example, it came out on the Master System, Commodore 64, Amstrad CPC, Spectrum, MSX, MSX2, Amiga, Atari, PC-DOS, PC Engine, Mega Drive, Game Gear, Saturn, PS2. It was on the Dreamcast as part of the Shenmue game. In the Shenmue game, you could go into an arcade and play Outrun. It was on the Game Boy Advance. It was on Shenmue 2, same thing on the Xbox. It was on the 3DS. And in one of the Yakuza games, on the PS3 and PS4, you could go in an arcade and play Outrun. So, I mean, it's a massive, important part. Like, people look at this and Afterburner and Space Harrier as kind of the holy kind of trinity, really, of kind of Sega arcades. Because when you look at all the cabinets for them, they were all kind of, like, very special. The original Space Harrier one, if you ever played that, you had to kind of be seatbelted into it. The other thing about Outrun is the music. You're not getting any of it here because they never used it on the attract mode. But once you start it, and once we see it with the clear, you'll kind of know the tune straight away. It was written by a guy called Hiroshi Kawaguchi, and he himself was part of the Sega SST band. And if you're a big like video game music nerd like me, you'll love the stuff that they do. It's just phenomenal. It's everything that's awesome about music at that time, and it just influenced so many other kind of. It's one of those soundtracks that everybody knows. People might not know the game, but they'll hear the music and know the music. And it's one of those kind of soundtracks that's really kind of stood the test of time. It's like it's a perfect kind of like I don't know. It's a perfect kind of crystallization of everything that's awesome about kind of mid-80s culture, really. Do you know what I mean? It's like really flashy and jangly music, and it's like do you know what I mean? A bloke driving a Ferrari like across do you know what I mean? Across the country and going on kind of a big adventure. Another thing as well is there's actually multiple endings to this. There's a lot of potential ones depending on the route that you go. And when you see my route map at the end, when you see the ending, you'll see the way that like at the end of each stage, the level of fork, you'll either go left or go right, and that dictates which way you go towards which ending, really. It's one of those games that everybody's played. At some point, if you've played it on an original machine, if you've played it on a stand-up or a home version, it's one of those games that plays a massive part in gaming and the explosion of gaming, really. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try and drive across this country. I'm going to try not to crash too many times, and I'm going to try and get to the end. And, well, that's it, really. I'm just going to try and beat the clock. I'm not going to try racing. I'm going to try driving, as Mr. Suzuki puts it. So, well, let's get started, shall we? Ryan. Choice of 3 musics. Splash Wave, Passing Breeze, Magical Sound Shower. Splash Wave, my personal favourite. Most people will always pick Magical Sound Shower. It's probably the most famous. It's one of the most famous bits of video gaming music of all time, really. But yeah, it's kind of Splash Wave kind of does it really for me. It's kind of one of those songs. It's like Outrider Crisis on Super Hang-On, which is yet another piece of iconic kind of music from these games. It just kind of perfectly sums up what we're trying to do here, which is absolutely nail it across this place. Once again, not race, drive. I kind of really like that. So what you're noticing so far is the fact that the roads on this early stage are really wide, which is really handy because there we go. You can just kind of coast it around all the corners. You don't have to kind of brake too much. You have to kind of slam it in. And there isn't too much stuff on the roads on the early levels, so it's kind of a bit easier. There's a chicane here. This is probably the hardest bit, because generally you'll find there's something as you come out of it, there's a car you have to try and avoid. But what you'll find now is a kind of central feature really to Outrun, which is kind of that fork in the road. And as I said before, when you see like the ending map for this, you'll see it in the bottom right hand corner. If you see that thing that looks like a pyramid, where it says stage 2 now, both of those are in red. 101, that's not bad actually. Both of those are in red. That shows the route that I've taken, and I'm going to be taking the A route, which is just nothing but left. So literally all I'm going to do is just, like I say, take a left at every opportunity. Kind of like Bart Gun in the Brawl for All, if you've ever seen that. Bit of a niche reference there, but never mind. So what you've noticed as well a couple of times is that in terms of braking on this, kind of it's worth almost completely coming to a standing stop than it is getting like hitting something and starting one of the crash animations. The crash animations happen when you're outside, when you generally hit something, either a tree, like there's a sign or something like that. If you hit them at any kind of speed, what'll happen is the car will either flip or it'll spin, and then you basically go completely to still, and you have to start from scratch. And if that happens, you're basically done. It's incredibly hard to get to the end in a run where you've got a crash in. On the desert level, that's a decent time actually. You see a lot of this sand in the middle, kind of it's just kind of cosmetic really. It doesn't kind of slow you down. Sand on the outside's killer though, because here's the thing. Oh, I didn't need that. As you'll probably notice, kind of because it's so hard to stay in the middle on this because of all the I don't want to jinx myself here, but with all the chicanes and everything, oh god, I just have done there. Is that when you go on the outside sand, your speed just dies completely, and what I've had to do there is just kind of chip it down in a low gear so I get some revs back up. It's kind of it's one of those things that this one, it's like it's hard to lose a lot of time, but it's very hard to get a good time, if that makes sense. Because unless you hit a road sign, which I nearly did there to be honest, you ain't gonna kind of bail it. But if you do go off road, you just notice kind of straight away your speed. Here we go. Oh, just about caught that in. You'll notice that your speed just dies straight away. So I'm going to try and bin it off and go the left route. Once again, stick to the left, Mr. Gun. If you don't get what I'm saying there with that, if you go on to Google and go on to YouTube and watch Bart Gun and the Brawl for All. The Brawl for All was like an idea that WWE had where they got the wrestlers to kind of box, and it was terrible. But Bart Gun was like legitimately quite good at it. He knocked people out with horrific accuracy with a big left hand. Anyhow, off topic. Oh god, I really didn't need that. What I need to do here is to try and you've got to be consistent with this level, because this level's probably the hardest. It's a combination of like there's a load of cars, a load of sharp turns, a couple of chicanes, and there's a load of stuff you can hit on the outside as well. The other thing with there being more cars is that if I hit a car at speed, it'll catapult me to the outside, and then if I hit anything on the outside that isn't like a bush or a bit of sand, then I'll generally flip, and that's the clear gone. So right, outside here, and then it's going to cut sharp left. God, I didn't miss that by much. Slow down, slow down, slow down. Right, I need to go left here. Hopefully I can cut in to the right of this. Can I? Yeah. Thelma and Louise done. Here's the other problem. Like, your time doesn't get updated until you go through the checkpoint. And the checkpoint's kind of just a couple of seconds further from the fork. So you can hit the fork with like 10 seconds and still not make it. Right. Last level. I really need to gun this. I don't really need to slow down to 150 like I did there. But I was going to blatantly slat into the back of that guy. A lot of really sharp turns here. A lot of lorries doing 200 miles an hour. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what to say about that. Dude's obviously like, do you know what I mean, hardwired his digi-taco thing so he can do, you know, it's like Back to the Future or something. A DeLorean lorry or something. Anyhow, what you see there is like, as much as that's cost me a bit of time, it would have cost me a load more time if I would have clattered into the back of him and flipped it. Now, the kind of tree type things, you can't kind of, you won't get the crash animation on them. God, this is tight. What are we on, 20? Right. God, I really need to burn this here. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Right, there's a sharp right and a sharp left. I can't remember. Yeah. Oh, I didn't need that. It doesn't matter though. I don't think. Change down. There we go. As I said, you don't have to get all the way to the end on that one. It gives you the bonus points as seconds. And that, my good friends, well, that's 1 credit as advertised. I would say sit down, but I clearly already am. White chinos, muscle top. That's a strong look. And like I say, there's 5 different endings. Simply because there's so many different routes through the game. What happens here is I get dropped and clearly knocked out. If you look at my hand, quite clearly, like. And that's what I was on about the map. Those are all the different endings. And like I say, I went for the A route. And what you notice is there's a couple of different ways of getting like the middle endings. Oh, what have I got? Wow, 15 million. I'm happy with that. That's quite a decent score. Shout outs once again to my lovely parents. It really was the kicker if it was if you played arcade games in the 80s and 90s and you had like a 3-letter name. And that's that. That's Outrun. As simple as that. And in a lot of respects, maybe that's the magic. It's just it's culturally everything that was cool about arcades in the 80s, but more than that, because a lot of games are like that. It's just everything that was 80s about the 80s, if that makes sense. It's kind of like new technology, new music, and like a Ferrari Testarossa with, like, do you know what I mean, driving a blonde woman across this landscape in like a Italian supercar. It's like it's just as 80s as it gets, really. It's quite a Miami Vice in it, really, but it's just so much fun. It's just one of those games that you can just, the replay value on this is massive, more than you'd think as well, because there's so many different endings. One of the key things that Outrun did was it got people into arcade gaming who didn't necessarily play arcade games, because if you ever saw a proper Outrun cabinet, it just kind of stood out so much. You just had all these stand-up machines, and then randomly you'd have kind of a, do you know what I mean, a massive model of a Ferrari Testarossa that you could sit in with like speakers and stuff, and with full hydraulics if you've played one of the full cabinet ones. My lovely wife took me to a arcade club up in Bury for Valentine's Day this year, and she's quite the Outrun player herself, to be honest with you. And there was a full machine there, and it's just so iconic. Like, everything about it is just, it sums up that time perfectly, like so many of these great games do. But culturally, it's a massive part of why video games are mean so much to so many people. It's just awesome. I can't say enough good things about it. I just want to say thanks, like I always do, really. These shows are nothing without you good people watching them, and all the feedback and all the comments and stuff have been, it's been really good these last couple of weeks. I don't know how many subscribers I'm on, like, because obviously I'm pre-recording this, so I was on 86 when I made this, or 87, so who knows. When we get to 100, I'll have another competition, another giveaway. But yeah, thanks very much, you good people. Oh yeah, I've had quite a few followers from Brazil, so obrigado Brazil for anybody from over there who's listening, and there'll be more of this, much more. You know the drill. No continues, no save states, no problems. It's 1 Credit Classics. That's why you keep turning up. Thanks very much for taking the time, and I shall see you good people on the next episode of 1 Credit Classics. Take care.